Not to mention the FISA Amendments Act of last year. And in particular, we look to trying to encourage real strong reform on the national security letters provisions of the Patriot Act. One of the reasons we feel a little positive about being able to reform the use of national security letters, and these are the letters that the FBI sends out to third-party holders of information. They send it out to financial institutions, credit bureaus, internet service providers, and they ask for information about those who use their services. No court oversight is involved, and the use of these national security letters has risen from something less than 10,000 a year before 2001 to somewhere around 50,000 a year nowadays. The reason I'm a little positive about possibly being able to reform some provisions of the national security letters section is that there have been a couple of Inspector General reports that have thrown some light onto the use of these tools. And so, for example, these Inspector General reports are just chock full of good information. At one point, they talk about the fact that the General Counsel of the FBI made a decision when the FBI was turned down for a Section 215 order, which is a very similar thing, only you have to go to court to get it. The Section 215 order was turned down by the court, and she said, oh, no problem, we'll just issue a national security letter. Because she didn't want to close the investigation. The court had said, you don't have a good basis for going out and demanding this information. And in lieu of closing that investigation, they simply issued a national security letter which required no court oversight. So in any event, the Patriot Act, when it was reauthorized a couple of years ago, included a mechanism included a mandate for the Inspector General to investigate the use of these documents and to report on their use and abuse. And in fact, we've got a couple of reports now that point out stories like these. That will be very useful, I think, in helping to reform the use of national security letters when legislative opportunity comes along, which I think it will this year with the Patriot Act reauthorizations up. But it also highlights another point, and that is for any of these other surveillance tools that are out there, surveillance mechanisms that are out there, we need to have a basis for moving forward. There is the handmaiden of the surveillance society is the secrecy society. We don't know anywhere near half of what is going on out there, and we need to figure out a way to do that. Well, our primary legislative objective this year is to try to get Congress to re-exert itself as a co-equal branch of government. It could happen through oversight hearings, but we would prefer that Congress create a select committee to look in a comprehensive fashion at the exertions of executive authority over the past 8 years, to look at the various tools that have been provided to the executive branch for investigating terrorism, and to figure out exactly how that all has been put together. There's been a proposal by Mr. Conyers in the House and by Senator Leahy to create a commission, a blue ribbon commission, if you will. And that hasn't received a real big favorable response. We have proposed creation of a select committee. We think there are certain advantages to that. First of all, it only needs to pass one chamber in order to create a select committee in one chamber. And it would take the job of oversight away from the standing committees. One of the complaints that we've heard is, oh, we just don't have enough time to do all this. We've got all this other work we've got to get done. Well, okay, create a second committee, add to the, create the stimulative effect of creating another committee and a lot more jobs here in Congress, and undertake a year-long investigation. We compare it to the Church Committee from back in the 70s. And of course, this is when the FISA Act was originally created. It came out of the abuses of the Watergate era and the abuse of the intelligence committees at that time. We think the parallels to present day are spot on, and that a new select committee to investigate executive power and the tools that have been given to the executive branch will go a long way toward helping this Congress legislate in the area of surveillance reform. Thank you.
Thank you to all three of our guests. Wes just provided a nice segue into one of the first questions I have, and I think a lot of people have, which is what Obama is going to do about this. Obama, when he was a senator, voted against the Telecom Immunity Amendment, but ultimately voted in favor of the new FISA law. And he has pledged transparency and at the same time continue to uphold state secrets privilege. And most baffling and disappointingly of all, to me, he has said he does not want to get mired in the past, but wants to look forward. When it sounds like all of us up here agree what was engaged in was clearly illegal conduct in the area of domestic surveillance. So I wanted to ask our panelists about not only the setting up a truth commission or a blue ribbon panel or an independent prosecutor, but what they see as the most likely route going forward and how likely the Obama administration and the Holder Justice Department, how likely it is that they would actually ever prosecute any of the wrongdoers in this situation.
Hello? Okay. I've already addressed that mostly, but let me just offer a couple of things. You know, there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. One is the Truth Commission, one is congressional oversight, one is through the prosecutorial process. And there are a couple of special prosecutors that are already at work on sort of pieces of the executive authority issue. One of them is investigating the destruction of the CIA tapes, for example. And so, you know, there's an opportunity for perhaps some of those special prosecutor missions to be expanded a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen based upon what the president has said. He wants to look forward, not back. You know, our response to that is, you know, would you think about legislating in the area of healthcare reform, for example, without looking at what's going on in the medical industry? You know, I don't think so. Would you think about reforming surveillance laws without taking a look at how the existing tools have been used in the recent past? I think you ought not do that. So if it's not going to be in the Justice Department, it seems to me the only logical choice left is Congress. And the Truth Commission Blue Ribbon Panel would require a bill to get through both chambers, and based upon the reaction to the hearing that Senator Leahy held the other day, you know, I'm not quite sure that is going to happen. And so that brings us down to a select committee, which would only have to pass one chamber, and I think would be a good way to go. Let me also just say that all of these things are not mutually exclusive. You can have multiple things going on. Back in the 70s, you had the Church Committee going on at the same time as the Rockefeller Commission, and they complemented each other to a great extent.
Well, let me say a few things. I mean, first of all, you know, we, as were others, were disappointed by the decision in the Ninth Circuit case involving al-Hamari for the Obama Department of Justice to renew the state secrets claim in that case. It came as a surprise to a lot of people, including the Ninth Circuit panel. Unfortunately, they rejected the motion and the case is proceeding. I will say that I think it is very important to continue to push this president, or any president for that matter, regarding the underlying principle here, and that is the rule of law and accountability. And if we understand what's happened over the last several years from that perspective, as opposed to, you know, a partisan attack on the outgoing administration, it makes it very difficult for people to accept a situation where others who broke the law are essentially left alone, let to go free. It is very difficult, I think, on Capitol Hill to actually defend that proposition. And so my view, and it is an optimistic view, that in time, the Congress and the Department of Justice will be able to get to these issues. And there is, without question, some progress already.